One thing that I'm really impressed about is if you go on Amazon for this product, it's got 225 reviews with 4.5 stars. Now that's a big deal, as I'm sure you guys know. It's hard to have a product that's that beloved by that many people. So let's get right into how this thing works. First of all, if you look closely, there are 3 different kind of bays here for doing sharpening. 1, 2, 3, they're labeled. And the first one has a little black plastic guard on it. This thing pretty much stays on at all times, and that's because it's to remind you that you only want to use this when your knives are extremely dull. Otherwise, you kind of ruin the edge that you've got. So don't be using this except in dire cases. Number 2 here is going to really put reshape an edge for your knife, and number 3 is going to give it kind of a fine polish. So we're going to try doing things with all 3 of them. I'm going to show you some of the difference. But before we get started, I've got 4 different knives here we can take a look at. This is literally a 99-cent cheap plastic kind of Walmart special. We have my $100 pocket knife made by Benchmade. We have a VG10, which is a very hard Japanese steel Damascus kitchen knife, and then we've got like a $40 Dexter butcher knife. Now we're not going to sharpen all of them, but I'm going to give you the concepts because it'll work across all of them. The first thing we want to do is check and see kind of relatively how sharp or dull are the blades, and a good way of doing that is with just a sheet of paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and take a knife and drag it through and see if we can cut it. This one's pretty sharp. You can see it's carving through. It's kind of ripping the paper at the end, and it's sticking a little bit. So it's relatively sharp, but we want to make that one a little sharper. So here's another kitchen knife. Let's see what this is doing. That one's going through even better. So it's fairly sharp, but you see it's dragging at the end. Let's try my pocket knife. Oh, that's not good at all. I mean, I can barely get it through there. And then the little cheap one here, it's a little rough, but it's kind of sticking, so that's not good. What we want is we want it to go through the paper like it was butter. We should be able to just chop it like a sushi chef would. So let's try the big one, because these are always the most fun. First thing you're going to do with this machine is just turn it on. Now listen to it. It just kind of hums along, all right? It's not real loud, it's just humming along. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this knife, and there's 2 different sides here. I like this because it sets a particular edge, and then you don't have to worry about it. We're going to set it down in this groove and then pull it back at about that speed. It should take, for a blade this size, it should probably take about 5 or 6 seconds to pull all the way through. So we're going to make one pass from this side. And notice how I turned the blade this way as we got to the end, so that I try and keep it in contact all the way to the tip. We don't want just this part sharp, we want the whole thing sharp. So now we're going to put it in on the other side and pull it through like that. Okay. Now typically what you're going to do is you're going to start with one side. You're going to make 2 or 3 passes, and then you're going to run your fingers along the blade this way. Never like this. This will cut you. You're going to start up here on the flat part and run across the blade this way. And what you're trying to do is feel what's called a burr. When we make a few passes on one side, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make about 2 or 3 passes this way. 1, 2, 3. Okay. What's happened is there's a little spinning wheel in there that is grinding against the blade on this side. So now when I feel the opposite side, I can feel a little ridge that is kind of where the metal is bent over a bit. And as I run my fingers this way, I feel that edge. That's called a burr, and I'm looking for it to be consistent across the entire edge. So in this case, I do have a burr. It runs the entire length. Now I'll work on the other side. So we'll do like 3 passes on that side as well. Okay, so now I'm going to check it, and again I have a burr all along that edge. It's very hard to see because it's tiny, but definitely you'll feel it, okay? So now we're going to go to the 3rd setting, which is a much finer and a flexible wheel, and what we're looking to do now is take the burr off. The fact that we have a burr means that we have a point that is very sharp, and it's so sharp there's a little fine piece at the end which is curling over one way or the other way. What we want to do is remove that part that sticks up, that curls over, but leave that fine edge. And that's what we're going to do with this. So now we're going to make a few passes, and you're going to notice it actually sounds different with this particular disc. It sounds kind of much quieter. So I made 1 pass and the burr is almost gone, but I'm going to make another one here. And this is really polishing and finishing that edge to make it nice and sharp. Now I'm going to do the other side. The other thing that's great, like I said before, is since this machine has these 2 V's, you're always going to insert the knife at the exact same angle. You can't mess it up. If we were sharpening it at this angle, then at this angle, then at this angle, we wouldn't be getting a consistent edge. So really all I did with this knife was I made a total of 6 passes on number 2. I made a total of like 3 or 4 passes on number 3. And now let's check it to see how we do. That is a whole different level of sharpness, people. Oops. Getting a little close to my fingers there, made me nervous. That's what we're looking for in a knife, okay? So that's how you do it with the big one. Let's take a look at the little one, and let's pretend that this one is really, really dull. So what we want to do is we're going to recreate an edge. We're going to use this number 1 position, which is a diamond kind of dust studded wheel, which is very abrasive. You're going to hear it even sounds loud. So I'm going to put it in here and pull it through. You hear how loud it is, and I can instantaneously feel a big burr on that edge. So it's really creating a new edge for it. It's removing a lot of material, but it also makes it pretty dull. So it's setting the proper angle, but it's also going to be very rough. Okay, I've got a big burr on that. If we try and see how sharp it is now, let's see here. It's hard to pull through. It's very just jagged. It doesn't work very well. So let's step it up to a smoother finish now. We'll use number 2. Did 3 passes on that side, and now on the opposite side I feel there is a burr on the edge. So now we'll do the other side. Okay, now I'm going to feel it, and indeed there's a burr there. So let's go to the final polishing stage, see if we can get rid of that burr. Now it feels really smooth as I run my fingers across it. Again, not along the edge, that's going to cut you, but going this way is pretty safe. Okay, let's try another piece of paper here. Now remember, that's a 99-cent Walmart knife, so you can make any knife really sharp. Now the advantages you would have with a high quality knife like this, a Damascus BG series steel, is when we sharpen this knife, it's going to stay sharp a lot longer because the steel is very hard. That also means it takes longer to sharpen the knife. So I'll probably, because this is really soft, it only took maybe 6 passes. This one might take 12 or 15 passes. You might have to make a lot more passes to do the same sharpening with. And so I'm not going to sharpen that one right now, but you'll notice also we can do the same thing even with a little pocket knife. I was having problems with this one before. We're just going to make a couple of passes through. We'll start with number 2 here. And I'm feeling to see, do I have a burr? Actually, I don't. This is also a much harder steel, so I need to make a few more passes. It's going to take longer when it's a hard, high-quality steel. Another thing to consider, especially the first time you use this machine on your knife, is whatever angle the blade has coming from the factory, maybe a different angle than this is setting when we go at these 2 different angles. For example, this could be a 17-degree angle, and this could have come from the factory at 20 or 15. In that case, it's going to take a lot of passes on this number 2 to get it kind of reshaped to that point. So when that happens, start off the first time you sharpen a knife, use the number 1, the really aggressive one, to set a brand new angle for the bevel for the edge, grind it all the way to that one, and then from then on you should only have to use number 2 and number 3 to continue polishing it. So I've got kind of a burr working on that side. We'll make a few passes on this side. Check it. Oh yeah, now I definitely have a burr. So now we're going to polish it up, remove that burr. It even sounds smoother. Okay, and let's see how we did here. So you know it's really sharp when you can make very, very thin little pieces, thin little slices. So that's it, guys. I would give this thing a big honking thumbs up.